Was in Vegas for Mountain West Media Days, certainly lives out here on the West Coast and knows the Malachi Nelson story very well. What do you know about Malachi Nelson as a national perspective? When he signed in January with Boise State's national credibility jumped because it was the first five-star quarterback, and he came from USC. So what do you know about him a little bit?
Well, you should definitely defer to Bruce because, yes, you're right. He's very connected in college football, but in particular, he wrote a book, that was about 10 years ago now, about the QB recruiting process, and he knows all those Elite 11 guys. So he knows well what they're saying at these scouting reports. I got a little bit, I would say, I'm not a recruiting junkie, but I did get more invested in that specific 2023 class because it was the first one where NIL collectives were a big factor.
Yeah.
And it was just unheard of at the time, like Tennessee giving $8 million to Nico. And I remember hearing, once that happened, all the other quarterbacks were jostling, like, where's my 7-figure deal and whatnot. So there was a lot going on that spring, summer. I guess that would have been 2022 now, going to their senior years. But, I'm not there in practice. Like, people who actually see these guys, on a day in, day out basis and playing side by side against each other and reading defenses, like, those are the people that are best qualified to assess these guys' performances. We're only going with what some of those people are telling us, right? Kind of like secondhand intel.
Stewart Mandel with us, college football writer for The Athletic. You guys got to listen to The Audible with Stu and Bruce. That's their podcast where they deep dive the 5-star quarterback and certainly talk about the Boise State situation too. Stewart, when did college football lose its patience? Again, Malachi's in year 2, like I say. There's a lot of time left here. Is it, the parents, the recruiting services, the coaches, the fans? You just can't sit 2 years anymore. Oh my gosh, no.
I don't think it's the coaches. In an ideal world, I'm sure the coaches would love to have 2, 3, 4 years to develop a quarterback. Obviously, they know that's not realistic in most cases. I think that I've heard it said over the years that, I can't pinpoint exactly when that expectation started to change, but I definitely think social media played a big part of it. 20 years ago, right? Malachi Nelson would have no way to really track what a quarterback at Tennessee is doing or what a quarterback this place is doing. Now they all get to know each other in high school. They all follow each other on Instagram. They all know exactly what's going on. And so inevitably they get to college and they see that their buddy from another part of the country is starting as a true freshman. Why aren't I starting as a true freshman? Now you introduce the idea that, quarterbacks more than any other position were already transferring at a high rate before you could play right away. Now you introduce being able to play immediately. First it was you could do that once. Now you can do it unlimited. And then obviously NIL deals and being able to go to a collective and say, this school's offering me X. Why don't you offer me Y? So the athletes really became empowered is the best way to put it. 20 years ago, the coach said, you're not going to play this year. What are you going to do about that? Like, nothing. You're going to wait your turn. Now they have all kinds of recourse to, this isn't working out the way I thought it would. I'm just going to go somewhere else.
Stewart Mandel of The Athletic and The Audible, the podcast you can find on The Athletic. Stewart, let's talk about Boise State's national reputation. I want to go back because you've been following Boise State back to the Chris Peterson, Kellen Moore Fiesta Bowl days at the peak of what they were doing. It's been a little bit of a rough ride since. The national media really jumped on the Boise State storyline this year because of Malachi Nelson and because of Ashton Genty, 2 rock stars that might be able to go off and do some things in college football. How would you describe the last 10-year journey from your perspective, Boise State football?
Well, for one thing, I feel like there is still a kind of built-in respect level for that program from what they did. That might seem a while ago now, but most people of a certain age remember the Kellen Moore, Chris Peterson era. And so I've noticed that each year when we talk about which group of 5 team is going to make the, was New Year's 6 now playoff, they're always on that short list, no matter what happened the year before. But it hasn't really worked out that way. They haven't made it since the first year of the playoff in 2014. But that doesn't mean that they get forgotten about. I think that's the difference. Most group of 5 teams, like they have their moment in the sun, and then if they go 8-4 the next year, everybody forgets about them. But they've managed to kind of stay a nationally known program year after year after year.
Stewart Mandel, what did you hear happened or what with Malachi Nelson in USC. I mean, I heard that real quick that it was just too big, too glitzy, too glamorous. He didn't like seeing Snoop Dogg on the sidelines in this, and he just wanted to focus. Feels like, you and Bruce Feldman are hearing a lot of I told you so's when it comes to Malachi Nelson. What'd they tell you about what happened in LA?
I don't know about the peripheral stuff you're talking about. I just know that because of his recruiting profile, people assumed he would go in there. He'd be the, not number 2 to Caleb Williams, and he'd take right over for him. And for what we heard, it became apparent pretty quickly that not only was he not the number 2 guy, he wasn't ready to be the number 3 guy. And so Miller Moss passed him, and now Miller Moss will be their quarterback this year for USC. And so just that he wasn't there yet. He was, some of these 5-star quarterbacks come in and they look completely comfortable and able to play right away. Trevor Lawrence was a guy like that. They're not all like that though. Some guys need time, and he was one of them. But again, in the climate now, if he could have stayed and competed with Miller Moss, but maybe it was apparent already at that point, I don't know for sure, that wasn't going to be a possibility.
Stewart Mandel of The Athletic, we appreciate your time. I want to hit you with one more quick question, and I haven't found a ton of news. There was a little bit of advanced stuff last week, but the Group of 5 summit that was supposed to be taking place, I believe, in Dallas this week, the Group of 5 commissioners, including Gloria Nevarez, who was quoted as saying that, a potential Group of 5 postseason tournament could be something like the NIT. We love Gloria. We call her the gangster around here, Gloria the gangster, and we love what she's doing in the Mountain West. I'm not sure I'm thrilled with that idea. A 2-part, very complicated question. What is the future of the P4 G5 divide? And eventually, will we see a G5, even if they have one team in the CFP, will we see the rest of them kind of put together their own postseason deal?
I think the only way they would do a postseason thing like that is if you're still going to allow the highest ranked team to go to the real playoffs, if you will. I don't think anybody wants to give out that access. I mean, it's funny that at the same time people are, getting increasingly nervous about some sort of split. This is really a game-changing moment.
Yeah.
That's starting this year, for the first time ever, a Group of 5 team is guaranteed to have a chance to compete for the national championship. It's a really big deal, and you don't want to sacrifice that. So I just think we have to wait and see how the 12-team playoff is going to impact the rest of bowl season. Some people fear that those will just get wiped off the map. I don't know. But I certainly think an event like what you're describing would be more appealing from a TV perspective to me as a TV viewer than these kind of small-time bowls that the teams get scattered off to. But I have no idea if an ESPN would be interested in that. So even if the Group of 5 schools got together and said, let's do this, they'd have to take it to market and say, you're asking a network not to show just one game, but all the games in a tournament. That will probably not be viewed all that credibly if the best team of that group isn't even in the tournament.
Well said. Stewart Mandel with us. Well, when you're not commenting on the Boise State quarterback situation and getting a lot of social media comments, Stewart, regarding Boise State, it's fun seeing Bronco Nation get after you a little bit on that. We always appreciate you coming on, and you guys listen to that podcast, The Audible, with Stu and Bruce, talking Stewart Mandel and Bruce Feldman. Terrific listen. Always appreciate your time talking college football, Stewart.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Stewart Mandel, Mike Prater. And what was the one takeaway you have from that interview there? Anything in your head right now?
Well, I mean, the powerful stuff is on Malachi Nelson in the podcast, and he certainly didn't want to speak for Bruce Feldman. JP's been playing a couple of clips in the updates, but just go back and listen to that podcast.
For me too, it's the G5, and being able to keep that spot in that CFP 12 is going to be, if they lose that spot, Prater, I don't know what happens with G5 college football, right? That's the only thing they have right now.
I can tell you, and it's something that you can relate to. It'd become the next FCS.
Yeah, no, I don't think Boise State fan wants that sucker. Ashton Jeanty is a physical football freak. Don't take our word. Listen to some of his teammates. You'll hear these amazing stories of Jeanty's freakness next on Prater on the Ball Game.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.